This is Matt Groening.
This is David Silverman.
Jim Brooks.
And this is the first show that aired.
I want to hear the first joke. I haven't seen this in a long time. Has to be within the first minute, right?
Yeah, it would be. This was our first look at Springfield Elementary.
Sorry, excuse me. Pardon me.
Hey, Norman.
Sorry.
How's it going? So you got dragged down here too, huh? How you doing, Fred?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I love the star design on Maggie's snowsuit.
Of course, it was before we established real neighbors, so we just had random names called out to people.
That's German for Merry Christmas. In Germany...
This is actually in part inspired by an experience I had growing up. When I was in the second grade, we studied how Christmas was celebrated in many lands, and I had grandparents from Russia. And I was told, because Russia's a communist country, there was no Christmas. Please sit down, Matt.
I have eyes in the back of my head, so children better behave when I'm nearby.
I think this is the first time of many in which the entire audience at a Simpsons episode reacts in unison.
Yes, that was sort of the, that was a direct...
I remember this. God, how long since you've seen this, Matt?
10 years.
Yeah, this is
there was some
emotional, man.
question about whether or not we could get away with Lisa and that kind of skimpy.
She has a body stocking on.
Yeah, that's what it is. That was the explanation.
That's later on, yeah.
With a melody.
An original idea behind the character of Principal Skinner was that he would mispronounce words and. Oh my God! Look at those designs.
Well, you know, it was early. Some actually stick. There's Wendell. And this is our first introduction of Bart in the series.
Homer, he sings like an angel.
Oh, jingle bells, Batman.
You know, he's a little off model, but that's pretty close.
Bart singing the alternate version of Jingle Bells, of course, is not something that we originated, but it's a classic on children's playgrounds. And it's amazing how many kids have given the Simpsons writers credits for ripping off other kids.
This is extraordinary seeing this after this long, man.
It's interesting doing a montage on just one narration,
But we bought a new little cat.
trying to come up
so
with gags
so
with
I
everything
guess life
that is
goes
being
on.
said.
Speaking of life,
That's how you include Grandpa with the photograph.
Well, yeah, we had this idea that maybe characters who weren't present in the scene should always be seen in the background in portraits.
And Bart, well,
Maggie fell down a lot back then, and I usually made her fall down as much as I could.
touched us all.
Marge, haven't you finished that stupid
And we
letter
also
yet?
used to have Maggie suck on her pacifier over dialogue, and we learned our lesson because it's very distracting. So Maggie stopped doing that after a couple episodes.
I'm just a big kid, and I love Christmas so much. Oh! Yeah.
A good example of showing people's expression without seeing their faces.
3 years, and I
One of the
can't tell
unusual
who's
things about The
Santa
Simpsons
Claus
was that the
or
entire
sleigh.
show is done completely in cell paint. That is, the backgrounds are not done in watercolor. And so the cells are very thick with many, many layers. And that's why you see some glitchy paint spots and shadows where the cells piled up.
Called cell flares when you get the little halo around their heads.
All right.
Homer.
Yellow. Who's this?
May I please speak to Marge?
This is her sister, isn't it?
Is Marge there?
Who
Once
shall
again,
I
Julie
say
Kavner
calling?
being brilliant.
Remember when we were obsessed with keeping the actors' identities secret so they could experience this as real? Remember all that? We lasted like a year and a half at that.
Yeah, it was
That's right. Every time they have interviews, they'd have like hats on and glasses.
Homer and I
Well,
are
the direction that
looking
Julie
forward to
Kavner was given from the very beginning with Patty and Selma, the sisters, was just drain all joy out of every line of dialogue.
Man, you could have married. I don't know why you picked one who's always so rude.
Good one, Dad.
That was an easy fall for Homer. It got more painful later on.
Dazzled.
Hey, Simpson!
What is it,
And
Flanders?
the first introduction
You
of
think
Flanders.
This looks okay?
So Flanders wasn't yet the religious goody two-shoes.
Do you remember how we did when this was on, when it was first on, Matt? Do you?
I think this was.
Want to go Christmas shopping?
I think it did pretty well from the very beginning.
Go get your money.
Tell it, Marge. Where have you been?
One of the
hiding?
problems we had early on is look at pupil size. I'm an obsess over little details, folks, because I'm that's the kind of guy I am. But we talked about pupil size, but we could never agree on what that pupil size should be until finally David Silverman made up the rules.
It was sort of like one pupil is 1/7 of the eye.
Is that the rule?
That was the rule, yes. That's the rule, yes.
Oh, Bart, that's so
We had a tough time with this scene because we couldn't find a way out of it with the tattoo guy. Why the tattoo guy would actually give Bart a tattoo.
Wait a minute.
What possible reasoning he could have. We came up with so many lines to justify. So we just gave up and said, get in the chair.
Yeah, you notice
But that was the big deal. We were obsessed with making him real, with not taking any of the cartoon liberties.
Or affecting management.
Burns sound different, huh?
However, for you semi-skilled workers, there will be no
Well, he's over
Christmas
speaker.
But that was
Oh,
a
yeah.
stroke. I mean, Homer's job, that was a real stroke, man.
Merry Christmas.
Well, my feeling was that if we made, Homer working at a place that could actually destroy the city, and cause havoc, I thought, and also I have environmental concerns. I thought if anything we could slip into the show, that would be really a great thing to do.
We used to cackle when we upset the industry at the beginning.
It's one of my favorite
Yes,
jokes,
Mrs.
a
Simpson,
tattoo
we
that says
can remove
moth.
your son's tattoo. It's a simple routine involving lasers.
Cool.
However, it is
It's a great gag that Rich Moore did in the storyboard. Be good to mention that Rich Moore did the board for this episode, and he designed Flanders, really, because he had a great great drawing in the storyboard. We just used that when we came to design the character.
Squirm. You don't want to get this sucker near your eye or your groin.
Ow, quit it. Ow, quit it. Ow,
Now,
quit it.
it's hard to imagine this now, but back in the old days,
Ow.
saying groin was that Fox censors flagged that, but we ignored them.
You didn't say groin so often in 1989.
But that "Al quit it" bit, that was very much inspired by my relationship with my sisters, Lisa and Maggie.
Oh my God, we're ruined.
This is one of the first times I think Homer really was yelling and whining that signaled a change in the way Dan did Homer's voice. Less the Walter Matthau impression and more evolving to what it became.
My Christmas
Now,
note is here.
those finger twiddling
Oh,
things,
silly of me.
that's strictly
This'll be
you,
the
David.
best
Oh,
Christmas
You pioneered that back in the Tracy Ullman show.
I would say me and Wes. I think Wes Archer.
Really?
You get a great deal
And
of
you got
credit.
it from, Oliver Hardy?
Yes, I think we're going definitely Oliver Hardy on him.
But having that time of anonymous work on, when nobody was quite paying attention, it wasn't center stage on the Ullman show, I think that helped so much. It was...
It's nice to toil in obscurity every now and then,
Yeah.
A great deal of freedom. Wes and I were just tickled to see that things we were animating were on a primetime show.
Huh? Oh, I love you, Mark.
See, I remember seeing you at Christmas party, and you were the one who talked passionately about a primetime series, and you collared me at a Christmas party, and I remember...
Well, I always wanted to meet you, and I figured I may as well foam at the mouth when I met you.
Your Christmas bonus. I keep asking for it, but
Marge, oh, let me be honest with you.
yes.
Well, I would...
No, Jim, this was a note that you had from the very beginning, which was to really anchor the Simpsons economically and keep them mired in their money problems. And then make it real, because most sitcoms, people have no money problems whatsoever, or the money problems aren't real. And we actually kind of lost that idea as the series went on. But at the beginning, they were really penny pinching.
Yeah, it's sort of fun to get back to our roots, man, even now, it's...
Yeah.
Oh, my, what a little mess we've got here. Well, which ones are yours and which ones are mine?
Well, let's see.
Oh, this one's mine, and this one's mine. This one's
That was one of my
mine.
favorite
And,
jokes.
They're all yours.
Hey, Mr. Simpson, you dropped your pork chop.
This is one of my favorite jokes with the squeak toy.
Well, happy holidays, Simpson.
Hey, Dad.
I like about some of these early shows is what minor occurrences in daily life we explored. As the show went on, we got much bigger stories. But this is just about shopping for Christmas gifts when you don't have much money.
Lump of coal in your stocking. You've been sitting there sucking on a beer all day long.
And we're just saying that the pace has picked up. This is a slower pace than we're doing the show now.
Oh, much slower. But, we're just getting rolling on so many things, and I think we're all learning every step of the way.
Well, what I remember about
society's mutating into hysteria, which is another.
What I was remembering about these early shows is that we really were experimenting, and the question was, could you make cartoon characters that look this weird and grotesque actually make you feel some real emotion? I mean, combining it with jokes, but actually be on board with whatever the problem.
That was a big deal to still do. I mean, it combined so many things. We were trying to do their characters. We talked about it endlessly.
What is it now, Simpson?
Well, Jim, one of the things you said was, we want to make people forget they're watching a cartoon.
From the top.
And, not always, but occasionally. And I think you really do get on board with this.
And I think it was great that there had, what was it, 25 years since there had been a primetime, animated series. So we had such full innocence. There was.
Our first Nixon joke.
One of many. He became a regular character.
And what would you like, little boy?
Like that scene being done in one shot. That makes their humor really great.
If such an emergency arises, you just
Very
have to
odd
send us
design in
busy
this guy.
time of
This is
year.
a character we would not have on anymore.
A nice bullet head.
Homer, why are you 7 hours?
Another example of playing somebody's emotion on their back.
Straight for the top.
Homer, my sisters are here. Don't you want to say hello?
And another.
I was saying earlier, this is a very nice layout done by Eric Stefani of the band No Doubt. When he first started working for us in '89, he and his sister Gwen were starting this little band, which is now a pretty big band.
Look well.
Oh, so that's where the rumor started that Gwen Stefani is my sister. I read that on the internet.
And why is that?
Well, for one
Makes
thing, there's
sense.
No tree.
Well, I was just on my way out to get one.
Can we go too, Dad? Can we?
No.
That's a great shot. Oh, I love this too. This is a great scene.
Great
This is
music
you. This is you, right? This is all your.
Yeah.
Your,
I guess.
This is one of the first of many of Homer driving down the street and seeing signs which make him angrier.
It's supposed to be a black silhouette, but we don't want to take a retake on that.
This stuff seems so mild these days, but I remember back at the beginning it was something that we really questioned. Do we dare have him steal a Christmas tree? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Does that make him too unlikable?
Well, I think a show like this sort of raises the standard of what's acceptable and what's not, and then people sort of move up to that standard.
Junk. I'm sure you've already got something much more important. A decent home and a loving father who would do anything for you.
This is sort of left from the Tracy Ullman show. We did these gags with photographs where action starts and we do a flash.
"Quote-unquote Santa."
I can't believe those kids are falling for it.
Hey, Millhouse.
Oh, hey, Millhouse. Is this the introduction of Millhouse?
This will be the first time he showed since the Butterfinger commercial, yeah.
Feel better, Santa.
Because that's his first appearance.
Oh, well, there's another Nixon reference. Millhouse, of course, named after Richard Millhouse Nixon.
There you go.
Hey, Santa, what's shaking,
Did you
man?
pay as a
What's
state of
your
royalty?
name, partner? Little partner?
Well, I'm Bart Simpson. Who the hell are you?
I'm Jolly Old Saint Nick.
Oh, yeah? We'll just see about that.
We should do a commentary where we just laugh at it, at the material we're all part of. Just sort of this
Santa's workshop, little
self-involved.
Cover for me, Alfie.
Don't kill me.
Is that sickening to laugh at your own stuff? I don't know.
It's a secret.
No, I think 10 years statute of limitations, you're okay.
To keep the family from missing out on Christmas.
That was, of course, the first time he said, "I'm Bart Simpson, who the hell are you?" in the series. And he said it once before, I guess, in the Tracy Ullman shorts.
Well, let's not get mushy, son. I still have a job to do.
Bart had this reputation always for being this real hellion, and he was actually pretty mild at the beginning.
Yeah. And he expressed a lot of love for his dad, especially, in many episodes. But I think there was also something that you had instilled in us, Jim, was that the family has to really love each other. We can do as many jokes and dark humor as you want to, but if the family doesn't love each other,
That's right. $120
it's just not going to resonate
less
with
Social
people.
Security, less
Yeah.
unemployment insurance,
But-
less Santa training,
Santa.
less
There's
costumes
Nancy
for
Cartwright
children, less kid rental,
doing
less Christmas club.
doing
See you
that
next
clerk.
year.
Oh,
Come on, Dad. Let's go home.
$13. You can't get anything for
There's a
$13.
style that we dropped, which is that sort of airbrush floor.
Yes, we were using, it wasn't airbrush, it was actually different texture paper
Oh, was that it?
Yeah, and
Yeah, it doesn't read as any perspective. It just seems flat to me.
right. It tends to flatten the image out. It's kind of a UPA-like approach.
I got to talk to Steven Spielberg once, and he said he liked The Simpsons because it reminded him of the Sunday comics. And I didn't know what he was talking about, but looking at this, it does look like a Sunday comic strip.
So having the painted backgrounds really gets that across. What the painted backgrounds also did was we were able to do a lot of perspective, moving the camera tricks by animating the background, which is much easier. I like cartoon characters referring to other cartoon characters. So I remember the third act being one of the more complicated ones because we had this dog race, and now it's like compared to the shows today, it's very simple. But back then,
The naming of the dog was so great. That was like that.
here's how you do limited animation on a somewhat limited animated show.
This was an idea that I had that they were obsessed with this long-running cartoon series, The Happy Little Elves, which we dropped pretty much after 2 or 3 episodes.
So it was taken
Also,
over
my original idea was that the Simpsons would be the only ones that would have hair color the same as their heads, but Barney originally had the yellow
and
hair.
then we dropped that in. Yeah, we separated it to be brown. And the other thing, too, is that we had a couple of characters outside of Homer with the beard line, like Lenny at the very beginning, but we dropped that, too.
Barney, of course, was inspired by Barney Rubble. We wanted to give Homer a sidekick neighbor, but we tried to make him truly pathetic. And that was the idea behind Barney.
The town drunk is his best friend.
And I think one of the other things that I was inspired by was the whole idea of the sitcoms that I grew up watching in the 1950s and early 60s, the family sitcoms, Leave It to Beaver and Ozzie and Harriet. And I was always very aware of what boundaries were not being crossed. And I thought it'd be really neat to get a show where we cross some of those boundaries, still maintain the sensibility of an old-fashioned sitcom. I mean, if you notice, The Simpsons have a lot of, look, there's a rabbit ear antenna on top of the TV. It's sort of a throwback to what I remember television like when I was a kid.
And that was a big deal. I remember when you came in that day and, that they have to watch television. There has to be a television series where you watch television, which nobody did, live action or not.
Well, one of the things that's great about animation is that we can actually show what they're watching, whereas in live action it'd be too expensive.
Right.
My estimation of him will govern the prospects of my adult relationships. So I hope you bear in mind that any...
Well, if you remember, back in the very early days, Fox was very nervous about this show because they were unsure whether we could sustain an audience's attention for the length of a half-hour episode. And one suggestion that was made very early on was that we should do 3 7-minute shorts per episode.
And then 4 specials until they got used to it, everything. And we had to have a conversation where we had to decide what we were going for because they had the rights to The Simpsons, and for a while it was an absolute no. Remember? And I had to call you and say, do we gamble everything for 13?
Yeah.
Or should we take, remember?
Yep. Hey, look at this scene. This is great. Great animation here.
Yeah, this was
probably
the
the best animation of this episode.
We actually animated the dog cycle, and we did a lot of elaborate pens.
Don't worry, Dad. Maybe this is just for
After this is a fun little camera move.
Come on, you stupid dog. Come on, boy.
A lot of great animation of Homer getting more and more upset. That was the most complicated shot.
Wow.
Just doing a lot of fast cutting to get the... I love that sound effect. Great sound effect.
Well, one of the things we decided very early on...
We should do everything... Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
No.
No, I'm saying we should do everything where we say everything's great. Great line, great straight line. That should be the extent of what we do.
Well, no, we're talking about some of the rules. No, we're talking about when we break the rules.
No, I'm with you.
Well, here's something. I wanted this show to be full of trash and cracked walls and imperfections in the pavement, and we certainly nailed that in this one.
This is great, man. See how I'm doing.
Yeah, I love it.
I like pathetic small figures in a wide shot.
Look, Dad.
Hank
So
Azaria.
basically,
The story's so neat.
Oh, no, you don't.
Basically,
No, get away from me.
this ending with the Greyhound leaping into Homer's arms
Oh, can we keep
is
him, Dad?
actually has some reality to it. We didn't find out until after the episode aired. I mean, this was just us painting or writing ourselves out of the corner we had painted ourselves in. A good ending for a Christmas show. And it turns out that abandoned racing dogs are a real problem. And we got lots of letters from people who are really glad that we highlighted this social problem.
This terrible, inhumane treatment of race dogs.
I didn't get my Christmas bonus.
I remember this ending being at the last minute when I had to get everything ready and set to ship over to Korea. And I basically shot coverage. I shot this entire scene in close-up and wide shot and had 2 people, 1 people.
I forgot. That's exactly right, Jim. This is one of your notes that we were going to shoot coverage. You and Richard Sakai said, let's shoot coverage in animation so we can make decisions in editing.
Santa's little help.
Wow. Well, that one we didn't have.
We gave up that idea.
Well, that one we didn't have the choice because it was the 11th hour, and I was like, I don't know what's going to work, so we're going to just animate coverage here.